Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Tuesday Night Live, brought to you by CrowCast. Joining me tonight is Peter J. How you going, Nick? Pete?
I'm good, mate. How are you this evening?
Yeah, not too bad. And Nikki, how you going, Nick?
I'm going well. And you?
Yeah, not too bad for Tuesday night. I reckon we're all looking forward to Easter and a little bit of a break. What do you think?
Yeah, I think certainly a bit of a break from some of the bad football that we've seen over the last couple of weeks. Geez, it's been some ordinary stuff, isn't it? And just while I'm on it, a quick hello to everyone joining us in the chat room tonight. It's always great to have everyone along in the chat and seeing all the regulars there.
Absolutely. All right, without any further ado, why don't we get straight back into the Crows news, shall we?
One of the great benefits of doing the Tuesday show is that when you have a stinker like we did on the weekend, the anger seems to dissipate by Tuesdays, and I seem to be a little bit more circumspect. But then I saw a little bit of news coming through on the wires today, and it was an interview that was done with Bryce Gibbs in relation to his omission for last week's game. I don't know if you caught that, but it was quite an instructive little piece, and I'm sure it wasn't vetted by the regular media people at the club, because he straight out said that he was quite shocked at his dismissal, I shouldn't say dismissal, omission. I meant to say, sorry.
Yeah,
he was quite shocked, and also that he accepted that he'd played a bad game in round one, and that he'd been told that he needed to do a few things to pick up his form. He was happy that in rounds 2 and 3 that his form was building, and that he had received positive feedback from the coaches for his round 2 and round 3 performances. And so that last Thursday, when he got a telephone call from the coach saying, "You're out," it was quite a shock. Did you read that?
No, where was it, Pete?
It was a bite out of Fox Sports News, and it was Did you read it? Did you see it, Nick?
No, I saw the headlines, but I haven't had a chance to have a look at it.
So it's direct quotes from Bryce. It's not, it's an interview attributed to him. But I saw that today, and I just I thought, Jesus, you've got a senior player like that who, has been counselled that his form was building and improving and gets positive feedback, and then just out of nowhere is the omission on Thursday by telephone. I thought the whole thing stank to high heaven, to be honest, but I don't know what you think about that.
Well, funnily enough, I'd heard that it was a mutual decision, so that obviously throws that out of the water. I guess it wouldn't be unusual for a player to find out about selection by telephone. Like if they're not at the club, then
particularly if they Thursdays, or it's often on Wednesdays or Thursdays, so it depends on when they were training because of when they were playing. So the fact that they contacted him, I mean, I kind of don't have a problem with it being a phone call, because we don't know what kind of days it are. But
sorry, Nikki,
we've actually discussed it, that even though he might have got positive feedback, if he was actually looking at his own performances, he shouldn't have been happy
with the decision.
No, with his own form.
With his own form.
But setting aside the phone call, probably is really minor. I mean, I emphasise it because I don't think that's great communication, but I think that that's minor in the great scheme of things. Surely the issue here is that a player is being given positive feedback and told that his form's building after getting the negative feedback in round 1. Surely the issue becomes that you're leading a player to believe that he's building and he's doing the right things, and then he's dropped.
No, I don't think that's the issue.
That's terrible.
Why, Pete? They're grown men. It's a football club.
Yeah.
It happens all the time.
But where's the proper communication?
Well, what do you mean?
But we're only getting his side of the story here.
Like the proper communication, like his form might have been building, but it still might not have been good enough to be in the side.
Mm. Oh, I'll let it roll. Obviously, I'm in the minority, but I thought it stank to high heaven. It is a fair indication of where we're at as a club, but that's just me.
No,
I
actually,
can't imagine the club would have been thrilled about it either.
What I think stinks to high heaven is what Bryce has done. Why would you come out in the media in round 4 and say that?
Well, that's my next point. I'm sure the club wouldn't be happy with him coming out and saying that.
No.
So it just seems to be, we had a whole lot of media last night about the state of the club, and that looks to be a significant disconnect.
I think it's pretty clear from an outsider's point of view. It's pretty clear that something's going on there because the players aren't playing with any sort of passion, any sort of commitment. They're being lazy. They're not running. They're not working hard enough. You name it. They're not doing it. They're not a club that is united.
All on
as
the
far
same
as
page.
No, that's right.
No. Anyway, sorry, moving on from that one, I won't get bogged down in that one. So moving on from that one, the good news today, Darcy Fogarty off of his SANFL imposed suspension, so he's available for selection on the weekend. Source, Jacobs not available for selection, that knee still troubling. And the other one relative to the Crows was the Luke McDonald appeal. Did not get up, and he still will take his one-match suspension. What did you think of that one as compared to the Setterfield suspension? As soon as the Setterfield one happened, I thought to myself, that's got to be, if they're serious and they're feeding him, it's got to be 2 or 3. And so 3 with an early play 2 with an early play seems sort of reasonable. What did you think about the McDonald decision?
Nick?
It's consistent with the way the AFL's going about it and what we discussed last week, which is all about the injury that was actually occurred and the fact that Chase is no chance. Well, no, he's not no chance, but the club actually has said it's, he may miss this week from that concussion. Now, the fact that McDonald's lawyer argued that he also possibly sustained whiplash, which in the incident, which, could have compounded the concussion issues, not just the hit. It's once again that whole thing of the AFL being reactive about protecting the head, etc., and sacrosanct. So to me, it was a bit more of that football collision. He was a bit late. All of us who have played football, you try to make your opponent earn it, and he did instinctively duck because he knew it was coming. But it's consistent for once with the match review panel and the tribunal that what they do regarding the head being sacrosanct.
I just think there's an ongoing inconsistency, personally.
Yeah, I thought. I mean, I was at the. I only had half an eye at the game because I was out, but it was on in the background. But it looked to me that that he was taken off as a result of that incident. He was out with the rest of the game with concussion, and so I guess, Fina, I tend to agree with you. Are you talking about the Setterfield one where you've got another incident where the player goes off with concussion, so he gets 2 games, and they're out of the game. So why the difference?
Well, there was no difference.
Yeah,
in terms of the result, there was no difference. The player got hit. The player got hit late. Both missed the rest of the game. Simple.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no consistency.
Yeah, that is kind of it. Yeah, that is interesting. There, I actually haven't seen the Setterfield one because I actually missed a lot of the games on the weekend, so I can't talk to what are the severity, etc. of it is, because that's often what they base it on as to whether it's medium or high impact. And Chase was classed as medium.
It was your classic pin the arms and tackle the guy to the ground.
Sling.
And sling.
Yeah, they are actually they are very concerned about that.
But it's no
because
different.
The player can't protect. Yeah, I know, but that's the way that their thinking goes. So in a way, they're actually being consistent about it.
Nikki, have you ever been punched in the back of the head? You can't protect yourself from that one either.
Not full on. No, you can't. But it's the way their thinking goes. So they're consistent in their thinking. I'm not saying their thinking is right.
And the other one that was a little bit controversial was the Paddy Dangerfield one. Another one of these where they're dishing out fines for intentional acts, which I think is pretty ordinary.
Did anybody ever think he was going to get a game?
Of course not.
And not be in contention for a Brownlow?
No, you'd have to do something pretty severe to get a match.
Yeah.
If they let Selwood get away with what he's been getting away with for years, Dangerfield could do a whole lot worse than that.
Yeah.
And looking around the AFL itself, the highlight for me in watching games on the weekend was, I don't know if either of you caught the Gold Coast Carlton game, which was a pretty horrific game of football to watch. But of course, we're all barracking for whoever Carlton is playing, and so I did have an eye on Sunday, and just a delicious little bit of irony there when Mitch McGovern came back onto the ground and was put as the loose man in defence. And did you see it, Fiend, at all?
No, I didn't see the game, but I did hear. It was
just delicious. He was the loose man in defence for the last minute or so, and when there was a sort of a scramble for the ball about 20 metres out from the Gold Coast goal, and McGovern was doing the right thing. He was back in the goal square, but as the ball kind of just continued to sort of scrum forward and across he got sucked up into the play.
Yeah.
And then, of course, what happened is that the snap came over his head, and bounced in the goal square and bounced through for a goal. It was a beautiful thing.
We don't hold grudges.
We don't hold grudges, but the fact that it was McGovern and the fact that it was Carlton, it was a great thing.
Delicious irony. Yeah.
It was great. Anything from anyone else?
So there is the AFLW news that we've actually offered 2-year contracts and been accepted for Anne Hatchard, Chloe Shear, Eloise Jones and Danny Van Hagen.
So essentially the band's back together next year.
Pretty much. And Renee Forth, who we knew about, so she was not going to go to West Coast, although her partner is. Justin Mules and Hannah Martin, and have all three of those have the 1-year deal for next year. And Alicia Considine will be back as an international rookie. So that's really lovely. The other thing is it's highly likely we're about to get the bulk of the squad also signed up, because most of them, they've been in Bali enjoying themselves. So we have to wait till they're back to actually sign the paperwork.
Very good. And the Crows have already announced that Source won't be available this week again, with no return in sight. So he's still got that meniscus issue. So I assume that they're just going to keep sticking with Riley until Source is ready to go again.
Yeah, that would seem to be how it's going to go. I think they've they need to back him in, and it would be difficult to look at alternative options, I think, after only giving him a couple of games. So
I agree.
They'll persist. I think, with Riley. And
what do you think, Pete? I thought he improved somewhat over his first up game.
Yeah, I thought that he wasn't too bad. I mean, I see Goldstein got into the coach's vote, so obviously had a reasonable game. But I think we're expecting a lot of Riley, and I think that and none of this is on him for me. I mean, I'm sure that you've made mention of this, that this picture that we're in now, this has been available for viewing, for the last probably 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And there is, if you look at 20, probably 16, 17, 18, why it is that there weren't particularly chosen games for Source to sit out for 2 or 3 games here or there, so that they can gradually give, O'Brien a few games, so that when we got to this point where he was injured, which we knew we would always get to, and he's out for half of 6 or 7 games, that, O'Brien's got, maybe at least 20 games under his belt,
It just makes far too much sense, Pete. Like, you're making far too much sense.
So here's something interesting. Simon Moyle in the chat said that Scott last night on 360, they targeted Rob directly for free kicks. So that means they were actually faking, which is exactly what we thought with Ben Brown.
Well, yeah,
He deserves a Logie for that. And I'm sorry, but you shouldn't actually say that's good coaching. That's actually poor umpiring.
Oh, I agree. I don't think anyone would. I mean, I don't. I mean, is it good coaching? Well, I guess it's good if they get away with it and they get an advantage from it. Then I guess maybe it's good coaching. But certainly, you're spot on. It's actually just poor umpiring to be sucked into it, unless they're genuine free kicks, which they didn't appear to be.
No, most of them didn't seem to be. Not in my opinion, anyway. But, by the same token, he's a rookie ruckman, and as we said on Sunday night, Nick, Goldstein might not be quite the quality he was a couple of years ago, but he's still a wily old ruckman, and they use that to their advantage. Goldstein had 17-odd touches and had an impact on the game, and as you mentioned, Pete got coaches' votes and all the rest of it. So, not silly.
No, absolutely not. And just for Sensible Crow, and I haven't seen Sensible Crow in our chat before, just a comment about the potential inside discontent about Brett Burton. Well, probably if we'd had Mackie here tonight, he'd probably
we'd have a couple of dickheads already going straight away.
Dickheads already going. So.
Macca's on next week.
So certainly no inside info on that one, Sensible Crow. But I think that all the stuff that happened last year, I guess it's certainly a fair chance that that's the case.
Well, without any further ado, because there's not a hell of a lot of other news going around, let's actually talk about last week's match, shall we? Pete, what do you reckon?
Any chance, what do you think? I'll spit it out in a minute. Any chance of having a chat about the twos, perhaps? Did you want to have a chat about the twos?
We can start with the twos.
I told you on Friday night, on Sunday night feed, that I was pretty sure that Pete was actually at the game and he'd be really happy and wanted to talk about the SANFL.
Unfortunately, I was going to go, Nikki, but a couple of things sort of got in the way and I ended up not going. But I do have the pass, and so I watched the whole game via streaming. So I did see the game on TV. So you were at the game?
I was at the game. There were very vocal, like there were about 6 or 7 of us just sitting in a row, and we were having a great time in the last half about how quiet the Eagles supporters were.
They're usually reasonably toned down there anyway, the Eagles supporters.
They're not too bad, but they did go very, very silent in that third quarter. So
it was a really, really, as it would be obvious, it was a really, really positive display, and certainly it was inspired by the engine room. You had obviously Patrick Wilson, Hugh Greenwood, and Bryce Gibbs, who I thought all had excellent games. What were your thoughts on those three? And then probably to a lesser degree, Jordan Galucci as well, who I also thought played very well, but didn't quite get as much of the ball as the other three did.
For me, Gibbs I think it took him a little bit to get into the pace of the game and working with those other particular midfielders and the way you work in the SANFL. So his second half was a lot better. I thought Greenwood had a great time just absolutely bullying every single Eagles player that came near him. He's just like, I'm stronger than you. You can't tackle me. And it was a delight to watch.
He looked huge out there, didn't he?
Oh, he did.
It was massive.
And he was just like, they're trying to tackle him and he'd just keep running, going, you're going to lose. To me, Gooch was just doing Gooch things. He was playing more of a half-forward wing role. So he was a bit more of that outside, but I just thought he's just quality. And we know he shows better when he's got the better players around him. For that type of player, that's kind of what you think. Who was the other one you were talking about?
Pat Wilson.
Oh, he was outstanding. His delivery into the forward line and Greenwood's as well was I think that's one of the best games I've seen him play.
Can I ask a question?
Doing a lot longer kicks. Yep.
Can I ask a question? Why are we playing Patrick Wilson in the middle?
He plays in the middle and on the wing. He kind of swaps a little bit there, but for the SANFL, with what we've got, because Paholke went out, normally he's more on the wing, which is where we would play him in the SANFL team, but with Paholke out, etc., McHenry, that kind of meant that we needed that bigger body as well around that midfield structure that we like to have.
Why would we play him on a wing?
Because that's where he normally plays.
For who?
That's where he's always played for us. When he came in for the AFL game, he played on the wing.
No, he didn't. Played half forward.
Played half back, I think, didn't he? Or half forward?
Played half
he
forward.
was on the wing as well.
No, my point is that there's no point having Patrick Wilson playing in the guts because he's never going to play there in the AFL side. So what's the point? What are we trying to do?
I don't know. Ask the coaches.
Well, no, this is an opinion show, so I'm asking your opinion.
Well, in the 2 years that we've had him, that's where I've seen him play.
Yeah, I'm not saying that.
I saw him when he played against Hawthorn. He did play on the wing as well as across half back.
No, he didn't. The thing is that we've got too much of this going on in the SANFL team, and it's great to have good results and all the rest of it. But are we actually trying to groom players for the positions that we want them to play in the AFL when they come in, or are we trying to win a game of SANFL football?
I have my doubts, Fiend. I have my doubts. I thought he played a terrific game on the weekend. I certainly wouldn't take anything away from him, but I've certainly got my doubts.
Nothing against Paddy.
As to whether he... No, I know what you're saying. I know exactly what you're saying. I don't think he's a AFL player. That's just my read, my opinion. And I wonder whether, we do, a player like him, we've got him in the middle there to at least try and generate the ball going our way. And so because we have got, to my way of thinking, we've got a number of certainly players in our forward line who are I would think, on the cusp in the next probably 6 to 12 months of transitioning to the A grade. And so you want them to get as much opportunity as you can. So also, not necessarily about, winning games was probably a byproduct of how the midfield was going, but it meant that the forwards were getting plenty of ball in, which was good. I think that the point is well made in respect of Darcy Fogarty in particular. I mean, that to me is just I'm just lost for words about what's going on there, and to see him out there as frustrated as he was, giving away 25-metre penalties for abusing umpires, getting himself reported. He is a frustrated young man, and I don't know what you thought, Nick, but I cannot see what is going on with him, and they just look to me to be really, just playing with his career a little bit, and it looks all a bit cruel to me.
I've been quite harsh on him in the backlines for the past 2 weeks, but this week I was actually quite pleased with his game, particularly in that third quarter when they did try and get a bit of trying to get it into their forward line, etc. He just seemed to have the ball on a string and was like, ball's staying out there. And he was showing that the absolute talent that he actually has. We finally actually had somebody in who was bigger than him, who can take those bigger SANFL full forwards, which it's just not his go. So we actually had a full back, and so he was released to be a lot more proactive out of the back lines than having to be that last line of defence. He's not the only player in our team who gets a bit frustrated with the umpires in the SANFL too. So I don't think it's more so much that he's frustrated about where he's playing. I think that's just frustration with the way we sometimes get umpired, which isn't fair.
Where did Galucci play?
Gooch he was sometimes in the midfield, but he was that outside midfielder, a bit across half forward. I'm not sure if I saw him on the wing at times.
Well, we played Gooch in the guts.
He was at times.
Yeah, at times.
He did have some spells in the midfield. Yeah.
Yeah.
But who would you rather see in there, Patrick Wilson or Jordan Galucci?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with the point that you're making. I really do, and you'd rather see Gallucci spend more time in the guts, but I guess depending on what they think that his role is going to be when he eventually elevates.
He normally does in the SNFL because we've had like him and Paholke have been the staples in the midfield.
Playing the
at
guts?
SNFL level. Yeah. Yeah, they normally do. But I did notice that he was being swapped with the forward line a bit because that's what we've mostly played him in the AFL. But my opinion watching his game was that I'd say it's pretty strong that he could be in the AFL team this week.
I would certainly hope so.
I think Greenwood definitely.
Greenwood definitely.
And
I'd have Gibbs straight back in as well.
The one thing I want to see is Himmelberg. Piss off JJ
absolutely.
And put Himmelberg in. He was leading at the ball. And now, I actually said this on the Sunday cast, Pete, but I'd be interested to see if you kind of had that same feeling. Because watching the SNFL, I get a kind of, if that's before the AFL team plays, you kind of get a feel for how the AFL team's going to play. And I felt quite positive about the North game because of that forward line movement we had going. We were actually kicking to the advantage of our forwards. They were actually running with proper forward leading patterns. They were leading at the ball carrier.
Oh, look, Fina, something that we've been talking about, for quite some time, and I know that you're hot on it. It's just having an aerial presence, an aerial threat. And the thing about, in particular, the third quarter when the Twos really got on a roll, it was the way Himmelberg in particular, and Ben Davis as well, because Ben Davis was he did a disappearing act in the first half. Second half he was excellent, but Himmelberg in that third quarter, he took 9 marks overall. And in the third quarter in particular, it wasn't just him taking marks. There was a number of times where he got into position and, spilled the mark or didn't quite take it, but just his presence and his competing.
Yeah.
I can think of 2 or 3 goals that Matty Wright got, and certainly Greenwood got, which was actually a Himmelberg missed the mark, but then follow up, still contest, get the ball, handball out, and get it to Greenwood for a direct assist. He was just, he was amazing. He was fantastic, and I know he only kicked 2 goals himself. He could have had more if he kicked accurately, but it was just that aerial threat, and he was taking 2 or 3 defenders with him each time, and that just, it's just footy 101, isn't it? You take 2 or 3 defenders with you because they were worried about him, and that just that helped. Matty Wright, it helped Stengel, and it helped Greenwood when he was up forward as well. So, and as I said, to a lesser extent, Ben Davis as well. He took 5 marks in the second half. So that's 13 marks. 14 marks between those two. Basically, it is a threat, and that's just something we don't have in the first team.
The SNFL coaches actually sat on Petrenko and sat on number 52, the little redhead Viking dude, I should remember his name, who's actually quite good on the half forward line for the Eagles. And once we did that stopped very much their run, and that then allowed us to control the play a bit better. But one thing I do want to talk about, which I didn't get to on Sunday, was McHenry. In that first quarter, when the ball was continually living in the Eagles' forward line, there was a ball up near where I was sitting, and all of a sudden I just hear this voice just yelling out, "Come on, boys, let's get this ball out of here and down where it belongs." And it's McHenry, and he's geeing up his teammates. So there's this 18-year-old kid who's being the loudest voice on the field, trying to gee everybody up, going, they've been getting the ball in, they've been getting it out, but gets stuck at half forward. It comes back in again, it comes back out again. And I know when I played that's pretty demoralising when you're a defender. And he's doing this loud enough, so the defenders to hear. The ball contest that happens, he's the one that gets it and just bangs it on his boot and gets it out of there. So he's doing this leadership quality, 18 years of age, but then he's going in and getting the ball himself, which I was quite impressed with.
Just getting back to what you were saying before, Pete, about
Yep.
because we kind of
Sorry, I had to get that in.
well, you could have waited a second. The thing that what happens when you've got marking presence up forward, Pete, you'd know this, and Nick, you'd know this. Not only does it make the opposition accountable, it also gives a little bit of confidence to the blokes putting the ball in, because they don't have to be pinpoint perfect with their forward entries. You know, if they know that their forwards are going to compete in the air and make a contest, then it takes a little bit of pressure off them in terms of their delivery, and often that leads to better delivery anyway. And you know, delivery to better positions on the park. So we do need someone like Himmelberg to, you know, split a lead up the middle and just make a bit of presence, because at the moment we're not getting any of that from JJ. Nothing at all.
Not a brass Razoo. And I think for me, probably Benny Davis, you know, he suffers really for the fact that he disappeared in the first half. I mean, if he puts those two halves together, he could have had something special on the weekend, but I think he just puts himself back in the queue a little bit because of that disappearing act in the first half. But for an overall performance, I think the Berg he only had 13 possessions, but he had 9 marks and 2 goals, 3, and you know that could have been a really special day if he'd kicked 4. And then, you know, Stengel, 2 goals, 5, and I think 15 possessions. And so, and you know, Davis himself, I mean, that second half, he had 15 possessions, 5 marks.
Yeah, playing high half forward.
Really influential numbers, and no coincidence that we, you know, we banged on 6 or 7 goals. And so, you know, I've been banging on about it for a long time, but those 2 in particular, you know, Himmelberg and Davis, they just keep getting it done at SANFL level. They got it done all last year, and yet, you know, apart from one game for Himmelberg, it just feels like they're just nowhere near it, and yet they continue to impress at state league level.
Well, the 2 obvious replacements for them are JJ and T Lynch. T Lynch has started to get a little bit of the ball, but he's nowhere near effective, and he's not hitting the scoreboard, and he doesn't present as a marking option. He's very much that conduit. It's obvious. If the club is selecting on form, then Ben Davis and Himmelberg needs to get... Well, they just both need to be in. Ben Davis has been running around long enough. We know what we're going to get from him, and we need to inject that X factor, that change in the dynamic in the forward line. We need to inject that in order to get some results. Tyson Stengel's another. You know, Lockie Murphy hasn't been bad. Betts was all right, but they're playing Betts very high at the moment. But Stengel just has to be in there. He obviously can find the goals. Who's eating? He can obviously find the goals, and he applies a little bit of pressure. We just got to get him in. We're not kicking enough goals at the moment. You know, we're 20 odd points down on our desired output every week, 20 to 25 points down. So. They've just got to make these changes now. My impression is, Pete, that we know what we're going to get from the people we've already got in there. There's no improvement left in these blokes, and it appears to me that some of these blokes are starting to fall off a cliff a little bit. We've got to make some hard decisions. And Ben Davis and Himmelberg and a couple of others have done a long apprenticeship. Gallucci is another one, done a long apprenticeship, and I just think it's time that the coaching staff trusted these guys as the next generation. That's why we drafted them. That's why we've kept them on the list. So now it's time to actually throw some faith behind these kids and get them in, and you know, inject some enthusiasm into the place.
I just don't want us to get another Harry Deer situation.
We killed his career.
We never ever knew what Harry Deer was capable of. Really, did we?
No, we didn't.
And so I think that it would be disappointing if they didn't. Nick, just a quick word on Ned McHenry. 20 possessions, and I know he ended up with a concussion, and no doubt that he had plenty of leadership out there. I don't know. I just felt that for me, there was a lot of fancy footwork, a lot of dancing around, a lot of balking and good stuff like that. It looked pretty. Wasn't sure there was a lot of hurt factor with Ned, and that's probably being pretty harsh. But just didn't look to me to be particularly penetrating or creative in terms of finishing off his work.
He's not quite there yet, but there's, as you said, there's promise that we can see where he can get better, because this is quite the SNFL is a big step up from the under 18s.
Yeah, sure.
But the fact that he's playing quite well, but to me the most impressive one is Shoal.
Oh yes, how did we forget to talk about him? My goodness me, Fiend.
Now,
if
you're talking about hurt factor,
jeez,
that kid's got hurt factor.
Goodness me, 34 and then 25 again last week, and we don't get their DE at state league level. I'm not sure if you've seen it, Nikki, but to the naked eye, he just uses the ball beautifully every time.
I think the club said it was something ridiculous, like 94%.
You know, and he's just cutting the SNFL to pieces.
So he has to be in.
Well, why? Well, you know, if we're fair income, if, you know, I mean, Don sits up there and says, you know, this is a merit-based system. Well, unless you're just staring down the barrel and telling lies, how can a guy that against Glenelg, who are a quality outfit, Glenelg they'll give it a shake this year. The Bays, they're a very good side. They got 34 possessions, and just made it look simple. He is just a pure footballer. I don't care how big he is. I don't care whether he hasn't got much meat on his bones. I couldn't give a shit. He is playing against men, and he is caning them. Yep. And he did the same against the Eagles. He finds the ball, and he finds space, and he uses the ball.
Yeah, and I think the fact that he backed that up means that he should be in the queue now. I mean, you could forgive the selectors for going, okay, well that's one game. Let's see how he backs up. And the fact that he's backed up now, just considering the deadwood we've got in the AFL team, it just needs to come in.
Nicky, the only thing that worries me is that, you know, we've seen what he can do. Now, I'd be very, very surprised if now at SNFL level that opposition teams didn't start sitting on him, and that potentially could affect his numbers and the way that he, you know, and a kid at that age, after playing only a few games, suddenly having to deal with a tag. I wouldn't be surprised if they sit on him.
I think they were actually trying in the Eagles game.
Well, I didn't notice it. I was watching it on TV, but.
They were trying to. His player was trying to keep him out a bit wider, but he was just like, "Nah, stuff you. I'm going to go and be the link running through." And because he's got that nice burst of speed that he can then maintain, so he gets that nice little break.
How did he drop as far as he did in the draft? Just
because he played more country. But I think there were quite a few. Like somebody said that Wells was after him. We know that North were so pissed off that we took him before their pick, just before them. I think it was because they were all hoping there were such other good kids in the draft, and he's a half-backer, and they tend to be later in the draft anyhow.
Yeah, I suppose that's fair. That's a fair comment.
So I think that's where it came from.
You know, so to me, I guess summing up, you know, the guys that really have to seriously be considered are obviously Greenwood, Gibbs, Gallucci, Himmelberg, and Scholl. And Davis probably just slightly the next rung underneath that.
Yeah,
I think the problem is that why we won't bring Scholl in is that he's a half-backer, and we've got those half-backers of Laird, Smith and Miller, who we love.
No, he comes in for Kelly. He comes in for Kelly every day of the week.
I know, but I know he should.
But they won't. They won't.
They won't because they're not picking defences to actually match up on the forward line that they're playing. That's why Hardigan is still in the bloody team.
Yeah, well,
if you're serious about this, you pick your defence for that forward line you're going to be playing. Not try and make the forward line fit your defence.
There's no behemoths that play for Gold Coast.
Yeah.
And there's no reason at all. There's absolutely no reason at all that he shouldn't be selected. If they are fair income,
bring him in.
Scholl should be playing. And Himmelberg should be playing. And the other three, the three Gs I mentioned, they should all be playing as well. There should be 5 changes.
And
the other thing...
I reckon 7. Sorry, go on. I reckon 7, but anyway.
Look, I wouldn't disagree with you at all. I think the 5 that are at a minimum because you still could put Ben Davis in.
Yep, absolutely. You know, I think if you couldn't argue with the following players coming out, Pete. You couldn't argue with D-Mac, Atkins, Lynch, Jenkins, Kelly, Hardigan and CY coming out. You couldn't argue with any of those.
No. Or Murphy.
Or Murphy. Murphy would be on the cusp. I reckon Riley Knight's another one who's skating on thin ice. Just doesn't get enough of it. You know, so there's opportunities there, and I think if they're, like you said, if they're fair dinkum, they need to start picking on form because this isn't working. And I think some of the senior players. Tell me this, and this is, sorry, a bit of a diversion, but how is Josh Jenkins in our team's leadership group? How does that happen?
Are they player selected or are they appointed?
They're player selected.
Mm.
So what do our players value? Because if I was looking at Jenkins on the field as a teammate, the last person I'd want to be led by is Josh Jenkins at the moment. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, particularly after the weekend's performance. He just looked disinterested.
You know, after all this time on the list, he's in a leadership position and he plays like that. He's playing arrogant. He's lazy. He's not presenting. He wants the ball given to him on a silver platter, and generally in a manner that requires the least amount of work for him to do to be able to get it. He squibs on leads at crucial times. How's this bloke? What did our players see in Josh Jenkins that they decided they wanted to elevate him into a leadership position?
Well, I guess that's something that because we're not in the inner sanctum, we can't know. So whether it's off field, whether it may well be that they're looking to try and get a good tip on the trots, something like that. You know, there could be 7 or 8 of them that looking to go into a syndicate with a trotting horse or something like that. Well, then JJ's your man. He's all over it. But other than that, no, I cannot imagine why he would be in the leadership group.
I don't think our blokes are serious. I don't think they're serious. They're not playing like they're serious. I think there's a few in that squad, Pete, in the senior group that think the moment's passed for them. I think 2017 demoralised our senior players, and 2018 might have been less about peripheral things and more about attitude. And because what we're seeing is more of the same in terms of attitude this year for no particular reason. Apparently they were a happy group at pre-season. So I just think they're shot, and I think the coaching staff need to see that, and the coaching staff need to make hard calls for the good of the club.
Yep,
that's how I see it.
Oh, I absolutely agree. And the thing that I find frustrating is that it's not like we haven't got people in the twos that can't that haven't got the potential to take that step. Now, if they start tipping out, 6 or 7, older players, well, then the immediate thought is going to be that, well, okay, we're rebuilding, we've got no chance of playing finals now, we just have to suck that up. But you know what? Who knows? Who knows what an injection of players like that will do? I mean, to me, the likes of, say, if you put in Greenwood, Gallucci, and Gibbs, well, that should be part of your first 22 anyway. That they've just been, So I don't think you lose anything certainly by those 3 coming in, and see why, Murphy and I don't know, well, Jones will come out with concussion.
Yeah.
So that you don't lose anything by making those 3 changes at least.
No.
But then you want to try and inject some. You read about it all the time. I mean, I heard Travis Boak interviewed the other day, and just saying, what it does, for the senior players. It just it regenerates your feel for the game when you get these younger players who are coming in and snapping at your heels.
Yeah,
and it brings a whole fresh attitude to the team, and so who knows what you can achieve.
Yeah, I mean, Nicky, you said before that Ned McHenry was chirping around the packs and geeing up, and that's great. That's fantastic. But why weren't our senior players doing that? That's I guess what I'm talking about. You get a bloke like Ned who wants to make every post a winner. Obviously, he's obviously that kind of kid, and he's the one doing all the chirping around the packs. It's not a Bryce Gibbs or a Patrick Wilson or blokes that have been in the system for a while. It's a new kid, and you put that sort of stuff in amongst some talented but perhaps a bit jaded senior players, and all of a sudden they're up and about again because it injects enthusiasm into the group.
But also, as you said when we discussed this on Sunday about the recent grand final teams, they've all got youth as well as the experience. And the youth, they're playing in the right position.
Yeah. And that comes back to play. And I guess that's what I was trying to get at earlier, Nick, that we're playing some kids in positions that they shouldn't be playing in because we brought in Miles Paholke. We didn't play him as a midfielder who could hit the scoreboard. Miles didn't have a role. He just ran around sort of high half forward and hope for the best. And we need to be playing Gallucci in the middle because when he gets promoted to the AFL team, he needs to be playing in the middle, or at least in that midfield rotation. We need to be placing our faith in these kids when we put them in, not playing them sort of left, right, out. Chase Jones, he just needs to be played in the middle. I know he's a slip of a kid, but we've seen that he doesn't shirk.
Yeah.
We've seen that he runs in straight lines. We've seen that he's got a hunger for the contest and he's a tackling machine.
He runs to the right positions.
Yeah. So you play him in the guts. That's what we recruited him for. You play him in the guts. There's enough room for senior and rookie talent in that rotation. Just play him where he's supposed to play.
And the thing is, Fane, is that what you want is you want him to be cutting his teeth in that midfield when he's got, the Crouches and Sloanes around with their bodies to protect him.
Exactly.
And otherwise, what you're going to end up getting is you're going to end up getting, we're going to be back here at 2 or 3 years' time with, guys like Sloane falling off a cliff and, we just haven't exposed these guys.
Yeah, and we'll be saying, gee, he was so promising. What happened? That's because he's played 3 years in a forward pocket, where he's not learning anything about playing AFL midfield. He's not seeing other players. He's not seeing opponents. The education that he can get from watching some of the elite midfielders, from close up. It's not just about what he gets from our blokes, but what he gets from blokes like Cripps and Dusty Martin and those blokes. That's all part of his education. He's not going to get that if he's playing a forward pocket.
Yeah, I mean, is anyone going to be concerned if we, don't win a flag this year, but we've given 10 games to half a dozen of those guys? Of course not.
It was a very interesting question posted on Big Footy a little while back. It was a debate between would you rather have a season where we kind of round the mark and all the rest of it and sort of finish 5th or 6th, or would you rather have a season where we finish 14th or 15th, but you could see the talent being brought in and you could see the path ahead and you could see the plan and you could see these kids develop. I'd rather watch us finish 15th if I could see some of the juniors coming through because they're the next generation. And as far as I'm concerned at the moment, this squad in terms of the current preferred 22 is done. It's done. We're flogging a dead horse at this point.
Yeah, I couldn't just shout out to Macca. I couldn't agree more, Fina. Could not agree more.
And look, it makes you wonder. Someone gave me some info during the week, and without going into detail about it, we've talked about this as well over the last couple of weeks. The fact that the club decided to put that coaching panel together around Don Pike. It smacks of indifference. And it has to be Brett Burton. He's the general manager of the football department, right? So around the bloke that we bring in to take our club to premiership glory, we put in, 2 SANFL rookies and a bloke that we didn't really want, and a bloke and a half who've been there for 100 years. What is going on with our coaching blocks? And the problem is now, and this is kind of what the person was alluding to that was telling me, we've got Scott Camperelli in the senior assistant role. Now, if you compare those roles at other clubs, before Fagan went to Brisbane, he was Clarkson's right-hand man. Well, he was exclusively Clarkson's right-hand man. So Clarkson would use him to bounce off ideas and all the rest of it. Don Pike's not able to use Campo that way because Campo's too busy teaching the new blokes in the coach's box how to be AFL coaches. So Don is is a bit of a lone wolf in the coach's box because his right-hand man, the bloke that's supposed to be his devil's advocate, if you like, is too busy looking after the new kids on the block. You know, it's a terrible coaching box, and I think that it's showing in the way that we're playing because our system and our ball movement and our transition and the players' confidence in what they're trying to do or being asked to do it's just completely shot. And I think a lot points back to the personnel and the composition of that coach's box. And when you think about the fact that Andrew Fagan wanted to put in best in class football department, it's an absolute disgrace and it's nothing against the individuals. Marty Mattner, great coach, Mick Godden, good coach, you know, all of that. There's nothing against the individuals. But is it the right profile for a team that is, in terms of its player profile, its squad profile, its premiership window, if you like, is it the right coaching panel to have around that group? I wouldn't think so.
No, and also I think it's a good point. It's actually a really, really good point that you make in terms of the profile and whether the coach fits the profile. And so I would envisage, you know, it's a very, very difficult thing for guys like, you know, Mattner and Godden. And again, no disrespect to them. They've coached in their own right. Suddenly they're thrown in with, you know, a whole lot of senior players who, you know, played in a grand final in 2017, have been there a long time. They're big guys, big reputations, big, you know, and so that's got to be, you know, it's not like they're coming in and coaching a team who's on the build and who's got a whole lot of young kids that need developing and you grow with them. It seems to me that, you know, they would have been better served with if they could have got him, someone like a Ratton.
Oh, had to be Ratton.
You know, someone like that who was a, you know, another senior person who, you know, is not intimidated by that. You know, maybe not intimidated is the right word, but you know what I'm trying to say. It just fits the profile a little bit better.
Is able to communicate, like, to put an analogy, or not an analogy, but an example. What's Mick Godden gonna teach Rory Sloane? Like,
yeah,
Mick Godden's of no value to Rory Sloane. Whereas someone like a Brett Ratton would be so valuable as an in and under player himself to a Matt Crouch, a Brad Crouch, a Sloaney. Like, he knows Gibbs. So, and look, the simple fact is, you know, the Saints were prepared to pay a bit for Ratton, and as a result, look at their results this year. I know it's a bit of a topsy-turvy start to the season, but the simple fact is that Brett Ratton's come in and the Saints have started to win. Is it coincidence? Yep. I don't know. Imagine our coaching box if we'd had the two blokes that Pike really wanted, which would have been Sumich and Brett Ratton. So you get rid of Camporelli and you put in a Brett Ratton as a senior assistant. And then you get rid of, I don't know, Ben Hart and you put in Peter Sumich as forward coach, right? All of a sudden, you've got all that experience in the coach's box. It doesn't expose Mattner and Godden as much because there's all that experience around the box. And Pike has got enough experience next to him in Brett Ratton that he's got the ability to bounce off ideas, and Ratton doesn't have to, you know, sit there and change the nappies of the two new kids. It's completely the wrong profile, and it tells me that the club is not serious because both those blokes were available for the right price. They were. Simple as that.
Was with Clarko through the Hawthorn Premiership years as well.
Yep.
I mean, what a box they had. They had Ratton, they had Fagan, they had bloody Clarkson. You wonder why they went top.
So if St Kilda had to pay overs to get Ratton and were prepared to do it, why weren't we able to pay overs for Brett Ratton?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Why? Well, I mean, if anyone can give me a reason, I'd be happy to hear it, but I can't see why you wouldn't bring Brett Ratton into your organisation. and be prepared to pay him a couple of $100,000 over what he might otherwise have got. Why wouldn't you? And the same with Sumich.
Sorry.
Same with Sumich. It would have taken a little bit
there's
more.
There's no good answer to it.
No, would have taken a bit more coin to get Sumich and Ratton over here. So why aren't we prepared to pay it? What are we spending that money on? Don't know. And it's showing on the field. So I don't have any confidence now in the season because it's very clear now that the players just have lost confidence. There's a disconnect between the coaches and the players. The players don't have faith in each other or the game plan, and I don't have any faith in the selection committee to inject the youth that's required to rejuvenate the playing group. So we're just going to get more of the same, in my opinion.
As dim as that outlook is, I can't question it because I don't feel that we would do anything more this week other than look at potentially Greenwood, Gallucci and Gibbs. They're the only three that would come into consideration. That's just my feel. And in the coming weeks, I don't know where. I mean, you would think that if we just continue to lose, that there'll come a point, but I don't know. I mean, will it? Is there a point they'll move away from the established selection policies that they've got they're wedded to? What will it take? What will it take?
Well, it'll take us being mathematically out of the equation. It'll be too late then.
Yeah, the problem is that and what's always a problem is that they win enough games to keep themselves ensconced and keeping their tenure going. So they'll win on Sunday, and that'll keep the Wolves from the door for another 2 or 3 weeks because they lose the week after. You've got to back them in because they won against Gold Coast.
Don't be too sure they win this weekend. Gold Coast aren't going that bad.
Oh, I don't think it'll be an easy. They've been. I mean, I saw them in full on Sunday, and they played some good football, and so I don't think it'll be a pushover at all. I think that we'll get across. I think it'll be Eddie's 300th. I think that they'll get themselves up for that, and I think that they'll win it. But I wouldn't think that they'd win by a lot. No.
And doesn't it
give
you?
Wouldn't be surprised if we get rolled.
Yeah, doesn't it give you an indication of where the club saw itself that was prepared to do that trade, that pick deal, that pick swap with Carlton? So the club clearly thought it was going to finish top half a dozen. Otherwise, you don't make that deal. You don't make that deal.
Absolutely.
So everyone down there has got ahead of themselves. Everyone, I think, thought it was just going to happen. That 2018 was just an aberration. Everyone was happy joy. Everyone was good. And it was just going to happen. They weren't willing to spend any money. They weren't willing to look at the game plan and rejuvenate it. They weren't willing to inject youth. And here we are. And it's an indictment on the club. They just got ahead of themselves and they've gotten too big for their own boots down there. And that's because there's not enough tension down there. Everyone just gets a spot. Everyone gets a job. Chappie gets another 3 years. It's not even discussed.
It's all tenure.
Exactly. And that's the culture of the Crows. I mean, we wanted to employ a bloody coach on that basis. Neil Craig, as long as the eye can see.
That's right.
That was tenure.
That worked out so well for Carlton when he did it.
But you're right, Pete. That is the culture of the club. It's about tenure. There's no tension down there for spots. It's not a vibrant organisation. It's a very comfortable, cosy organisation that just thinks it's a little bit better than what it actually is at the moment, in my opinion.
And when you take away that tension, then that's where the power then resides. It resides with the players.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll stop being Debbie Downer.
You know what? I came on last Tuesday with the intent of thinking, well, I can't be too negative this week. We'll knock over the Kangaroos on Saturday, and then we could get ourselves to probably 5-2. And now I'm thinking, it's so hard. It's so hard because the problem is that this is the part of the draw that they really needed to, make a statement from this in this first 5 or 6 games because they've still got Geelong away, still got West Coast away, still got Brisbane away. They're not games that we're going to win.
No.
And so, they haven't played Collingwood yet. They got West Coast twice yet.
Yeah.
They've got GWS to play. They've got a, I don't know.
And you guys poo-pooed me last week when I said, nope, North are going to win.
So anyway,
I told you so.
And am I the most optimistic person on this panel?
Yes, you are.
No, Donkey is.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Donk.
Yeah, true.
Come on.
But do we actually really listen to Donk?
Anyway, yes, we do. Anyway, look, I feel a bit sad for the players. There's some players that have given their heart and soul for the club. Tech's given his heart and soul for the club. Sloaney, Talia, those blokes. And I just wish the club would actually do them a service and put the correct people around them and give them some new talent to work with and give them an opportunity.
That that would give them a bump.
Yeah,
and you'd be surprised. I reckon you'd be surprised at how many games you might win, as opposed to thinking that you're just going to get flogged by 20 goals every week because you're playing half a dozen youngsters.
Yeah.
You still got a lot of good players around them.
Yeah,
a lot of
there
good
are.
players.
Although the one thing I think this is what has really shown is how much we miss Brown in that back line.
Well, and Tom.
I'm not sure anyone makes a difference at the moment, Nick. But anyway,
I think the biggest loss we've had is Tom, because I think we've just any rebound we were going to have from halfback. Robbo was on 360 the other night talking about the Crows of old and all the bounce we got off halfback and all the rest of it. We're completely stagnant off halfback now, and that's why our entries are haphazard and our scoring is down. And I think. Not that I think Tom would have been the difference between winning and losing, but I think he's probably had the most impact in terms of his ability to play a role down back and give confidence to some of the other blokes.
Yeah, there's one of those players that roams across halfback that I reckon is pretty comfortable down there, and really he's one that really needs a rocket. No, number 33, I reckon he's very, very comfortable there. And
I don't think he's comfortable. He looks scared.
He never ever comes under any scrutiny, that player. And I just reckon he's one that just goes along, gets it, just does his.
I don't know.
He looks scared to me. He does not want to take any chances. He does not want to do the running anymore.
Well, not only that, Nick, Pete, I kind of disagree, because what's the one thing you haven't seen from Brodie anymore this season so far?
Well, I haven't seen much from him at all, to be honest.
No, but have you seen him try to lace out a 40 or 50 metre pass?
No, not that I can recall.
No.
You blame. Well, you could say it's the forward's fault.
No. I reckon it's game plan.
Is it?
It's game plan.
It's game plan.
Well, because
maybe.
We are playing this chip around, keep possession game, and so we're not actually utilising Brodie's strength, which is his ability to break a line, because we're not actually trying to break a line at the moment. So all you see Brodie doing is these little dinky little 20-metre passes. And I reckon it's instruction, because Brodie's instinct, if he's not concentrating, his natural instinct is to boot the ball 60 metres down the line. We haven't seen any of that. All we've seen is dinky little 20-metre passes. And to me, Brodie's form is actually indicative of what our game plan looks like at the moment. And I just don't think it's a natural way to play the game of football.
No, fair call.
The other one that's comfortable, I reckon, though, Pete, is Lairdy. Where's he gone?
And he's had a horrendous start to the year. He finally played a bit more proactively and a bit more like the Laird we know against North, but the previous games have been shite.
Yeah, I thought he was sat on a bit in the Hawthorn match, but he hasn't been in good form. And I mean, you could run through the whole list, but there are a couple of standouts that even Millerer hasn't been terribly dynamic off half-back. He's been okay in patches when he's run through the midfield, but he hasn't been dynamic off half-back. And I actually don't think they've got a license to be dynamic. I think they are playing some weird, rigid... You remember the JLT game against GWS, Pete? And in the first half, we were a free-running team, and in the second half, we started to play like Hawthorn and chip it around.
Yep.
It's that second half that we've brought into the season, that chip it around stuff. That seems to be the decision. This is how we're going to play, and I just don't think it's working for our playing group.
Yeah, look, when you see them play like they do, you could you can go down 100 different burrows, can't you? It's game plan, it's attitude, it's form, it's a whole lot of things, isn't it?
And all that comes back to coaches.
Yeah.
All of that comes back to the coaching staff.
Yeah, because if the players don't believe, they won't put in. They won't make a yard when they need to.
And that's the fault of the coaches in not making them believe.
Or putting something
Campo
together.
Campo coming out, of course, and hanging the players out to dry. And so,
yeah,
as he did.
Yeah, yeah. I look. I don't want to continue to be negative. I've said what I think, but unless the barometer for me will be if JJ gets dropped. Until JJ gets dropped, we're not serious.
Yep.
As a football club.
He's
that's
got to get dropped. He's got to get dropped this week on that performance. Yeah. Because that performance should be not acceptable.
Anyway, I reckon we'll get up in a close one against the Suns, probably only because it's Eddie's 300th.
Yep. Yeah, no more than 3 or 4 goals. That would be maximum, I reckon.
Yeah. And I reckon it'll be an ugly game.
Yeah, of course it will. Because they're not a bad side.
No. Well, they're a team on the rise.
Yep.
And look, Jude seems to have got them playing for each other, so that always helps. Nick, what do you reckon?
I've liked watching Gold Coast. I was one of those who actually thought they might be a bit on the move this year. I think they will tire towards the middle and the end of the year, and they do a lot of travelling, which doesn't help a young side. It can gel a group together quite well, but it is also quite draining.
Yeah, it's a good observation.
When they're new. So I think that's our little advantage is they've had to do a bit of travelling recently and they've had a lot of close games.
Yeah.
So for me, that's the only reason why I'm tipping with the way we are. If we don't drop JJ, that's going to be a major issue.
Except I'm not sure whether they had a good matchup for two tools.
The dropping of JJ is it's that line in the sand, like when they brought McKay back off of no preseason. It's that, you know what I mean? It's that decision that
it's the reverse DMAC.
There's no forward movement in this club at all. Yeah. It's inertia.
Yeah, that's right. Look, speaking of tipping, let's get into some competition news, shall we? And I have to say thank you, as usual, to all our patrons that have supported us via Patreon. We've got them listed there: Megan, Michael, Nicholas, Pam, Paul, J-Mac, Ben, Chris, Mark and Tim. I was hoping to have some sponsorship news tonight, but that's still being finalised, so maybe on Sunday we'll have that all together. But look, we do thank everyone for their support of the cast as usual. If you want to support us, obviously you can go to our website and click the Patreon button, or you can go to patreon.com/AFLCrowcast.com. Also, don't forget, if you listen to us on iTunes, you can give us a review and a star rating on iTunes. That kicks it along. And make sure that if you've got some Crows-loving friends, share the cast, share the links on Facebook, share them on Twitter. Get people involved. We do want to grow this cast and get out to as many people as possible. So, and with all that being said, Nikki, my tipping sucked on the weekend. I got 4.
So did I, and I'm still on top. I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, because everyone else sucked as well. I think the highest, what do we have? DSG got 5, and he was the lone 5. Then we had Joel, Oryx, Tree, me, Matt and you on 4, and then the rest. So it's still fairly tight, the pack. You on 21, and then a bunch of us on 20, and then another bunch on 19 and 18. So lots to play for. We will have a surprise there. Now, Donkey would take 20 minutes talking about the Dream Team because it's his little love child. The difference between...
Is he actually winning?
Well, I don't know so much whether he's winning, but the difference between him and I is that I'm not winning. I'm, in fact, absolutely hopeless when it comes to Dream Team, and therefore I'm not going to spend any time on it whatsoever. So that was competitions. Nick, have you got a Coke Wumble for us?
Unfortunately, I didn't get to watch a lot of football on the weekend, so this makes it a bit hard. So if anybody's got any they would like to nominate, so from the cast on Sunday night, there was the chat all wanted to nominate Ben Brown for the dive that he took. Do you guys have anybody who's done anything particularly stupid you can think of?
Oh, look, for me, the winner is Mitch McGovern.
What about you, Fane?
No, I haven't got any.
It's been quite an okay-ish. So I do like. I didn't see it, but I think for the oh my god, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, but the lovely German word no, I don't even want to attempt to do it.
Schadenfreude.
That's it. I didn't want to do it and get it wrong. I think that we've definitely got to give it to Gov.
Love it.
Yeah, I'm happy with Gov. Anyway, guys, that was a bit of a event, wasn't it?
Well, you got to do it.
You got to do it. But look, thanks everyone for listening. Amazing. We cracked 600 on Spreaker with comments, so we just love you guys on Spreaker. Chatting away there. It's fantastic, and we get some good little tidbits of information along the way. So thanks everyone there. Thanks to everyone listening to us on Facebook. Of course, you can catch the cast anytime you like on Spreaker.com/user/AFL CrowCast or Facebook.com/AFL CrowCast or our website, AFLCrowcast.com. This weekend, Cam and I are going to have another crack at the Rev Up, and obviously on Sunday night. Now, our game is on Sunday this week, so I would imagine that... a bit later. I reckon the wrap might be 8 o'clock this week, but we'll certainly post on all the social media channels closer to the day, but we'll be on at 8, I would imagine. Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Nikki.
Thanks, mate. It was an analytical rant tonight, at least.
It was. It had some substance.
It made me feel better.
Oh, well, that's the main thing. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you on the weekend. Goodbye.